From the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, this is the SDM Show with your host, Rob Cairns. The SDM Show focuses on business, life, productivity, digital marketing, WordPress, and more. Sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the show. Here is Rob.
Hey everybody, I'm Rob Cairns. I'm the founder, CEO, and Chief Technologist at Stunning Digital Marketing. In today's show, I have Go with me. And Go and I are going to talk all about podcasting and monetizing your podcast and more. This is one conversation I can't wait to share with you. Sit back, relax, enjoy the show. This episode is brought to you by All-in-One WP Migration, the most trusted WordPress migration plugin with over 60 million sites served. Whether you are switching hosts, changing domains, or moving to a new server, All-in-One WP Migration makes it one click. Try it for free at WordPress.org or visit servemass.com for pro features. Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here, and today I have my guest, Mr. Gal Cole, with me. Hey Gal, how you doing, man?
Good. Thank you, Rob. How are you?
Doing well. As long as I stay at home, I'm all good right now with the state of the world. You know how it is. So
Yeah.
you and I were going to dive into podcasting and how to monetize it. And I was mentioning to you before we went to air, it's interesting. Wonderly has just disabled the Wonderly app, which Amazon owns, and they're now moving that right into Audible, apparently. I don't know what, haven't figured out what their method is, except maybe to enhance the Audible offerings and the tiers that they're selling audiobooks. I don't know. But before we go there, how did you get into this world of podcasting and helping clients?
So that's interesting. I have a marketing background because I've been doing marketing since I was 14. Now, these days, I've been following in marketing trends all around for the last 2 decades. And I've seen so many trends and so many marketing gurus and content gurus trying to sell you on their, service or their solution. And so many people are getting scammed at the moment. And for me, it felt like, these days with the AI booming and everyone's creating content with AI, everything turns out vanilla. And what I do, usually I worked with founders and I helped B2B tech companies raise over $20 million in fundraising. And working with those founders had led me to a point of acknowledging that they are the only ones who have the story of a company, a story of the product, and they are the only one who hold the pain points and, all the process that they've discovered in order to create their solution. And it is funny, but, those founders, usually they don't find the time to write content or to have some sort of interaction with people online. So
they don't.
So that thing plus the fact that I'm originally from Israel. This is like the tech bubble. And to get in the ears of people in Texas, for example, it will be so tremendously hard to do it organically. Usually on LinkedIn, people spend so much effort and so much money on getting clients and, just getting a demo done today, it costs around $800. And it's just a demo. It's not a client. So one day, a friend of mine came to me and told me, look, I was suggested to speak on a podcast. And then it hit me that just doing a podcast show, not your own, okay? Because founders don't have the time. And I really respect what you do as a podcaster and all the time and effort that you sacrifice in order to create this show. But founders don't have it. And, if a founder would tell his VC or his investors, look, I'm now dedicating 26 hours a week to create my own show, they will think that he went nuts.
Of course,
because he needs to.
He's got to do what makes him money.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just came into that thinking, look, we have podcasts that already established their audience. They already have thousands of monthly listeners. And those monthly listeners are the right ICP, the right persona that we're trying to reach. So why don't we just book the founders on shows that already established this and already have trust and already have community and engagement behind them?
Yeah. 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 It's so true. I mean, I said to somebody, I was talking to my partner in life the other day, and I said, you know what's frustrating? Every morning I wake up, and you're a marketer by trade, so you'll get this. And I've got 8 SEO emails. You don't rank, you don't do this, you don't do that, blah, 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 blah. And these are all old style tactics that in the worlds of AI don't work anymore. And we all know that. So they're basically running out. They're scamming people or they're just caught in their own bubble and don't realize the world has changed. And they're trying to sell old tactics. You know, it's interesting. Right behind it, every day I have 2 or 3 requests saying from either a founder or his secretary or his PR people saying, we'd like to get him on your show. I've had since the first of the month, and we're at middle of March at time of this record, I've had 28 requests. 28 requests. So there's a couple things to take away. Number one, founders are getting the message, right? That's first thing. Number two, podcasting is good for SEO because if they can find me, right? And let's be honest, that's why you're
Absolutely.
doing the show. Let's be fair.
So you touched a right point because nowadays all those AI chatbots and all those
Yep.
agentic AI tools are crawling the internet and trying to search for the right solution for people and trying to, index it. And when we create one podcast, for example, one episode, you can post it on YouTube, which is now served as the biggest data point,
Yep.
even over Reddit for AI companies. They are actually now monitoring what we upload and what we say, and they see the transcript. And based on that, they would give the next answer to the next query inside
Yep.
ChatGPT, for example, or inside Claude. So it's not just the SEO. Besides that, obviously, um, the human connection between person and the fact
Mhm.
that we can speak about a pain point and how to solve it for
Mhm.
45 uninterrupted minutes. It's something that we don't do usually on social media. We don't see people
Yep.
getting and pressing the pain point and trying to solve people's problems in a way that we do in podcasting, because usually
Yep.
you just scroll and you see the posts and it takes like 3 seconds of your
Yep.
time to acknowledge what they're after, what they want from you,
Yep.
and you
Yep.
just push it.
Yeah, it's true. And and you think AI isn't real. So I'll give you a real life example. My partner in life, Tiz Maroney, um, she doesn't she's on social, but she doesn't have a big social media presence. My show is dedicated after her and my late father and my mother. And then she's been mentioned in a couple of podcast episodes just because she inspires me. And then on my 600th episode, which dropped in September, she said to me, I want to have the last word on that episode. I gave it to her. Okay. Would you believe? Here's a lady. She works in the insurance business, has no big social presence, and AI pulled all that stuff out. I did a search one day. I'd never done it before. I was sitting beside her and said, let's do something fun. Let's type in who is Tisroni into Gemini and let's see what comes up. And guess what? What came out was all this information. So if you think AI doesn't matter, even from a podcast perspective, it matters more today than ever before.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And it is getting crazy with the amount of data outside. And, no one can be, anonymous anymore, I would say.
I would say those days are gone because of things like the internet, Wayback Machine, and things like that. Those days are long gone, my friend. Long gone. And by the way, using an incognito window in your browser doesn't make you let you hide. It's just, whatever.
No,
I know.
no, not at all. Yeah, I've worked for several years in the cyber industry, and I know for a fact that,
Yeah, me
just
too.
opening a new tab and an incognito tab, it will not serve you. Even, even maybe going on the Tor browser, for example, the Onion Ring browser, it will not serve you because nowadays we actually have the ability to link between engaging
Hmm.
devices. For example, if you log in with your IP with your iPhone on a certain network and a different
Yeah,
computer or
yeah,
different device on this specific
yeah,
same network, you got a link. So yeah,
yeah.
this is
So 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 true. But now what I'll share with you, and then we'll kind of move on, is from a host perspective, and I do a podcast, I'm over 600 episodes, and somebody said to me, what benefit do you get? Because we know podcasting's a lot of work, and you touched on that already. I enjoy doing it. I said to somebody the other day, even though I've been doing 600 episodes, I've streamlined it. It's still a lot of work. I don't care what anybody says. But what benefits for the host? I get to expand my network. The people I've met from doing this show, the interviews, and some of these people I've never met before become good friends, like minded people. Number two, I get my guests for a master class of any topic I want for 45 minutes to an hour, and I get to ask you questions and use your expertise. And it's good for my listeners, and I always do it in a way. But I'd be lying in saying if I didn't benefit out of that a little bit. And then the whole driving traffic to the business for me is really important. So, what do you think of those three things?
So, first of all, I'm all into that network building. I'm a
Hmm.
huge believer in that aspect. Look, I originally my parents were both artists. I used to live in a small hippie town next to a rich place. So I used to network with those guys, and I used to work
Yeah.
out with those guys. So I did triathlon with those guys, and they have the most shiniest object. The fastest bicycle, the most expensive one, full carbon, and I used to be
Yeah.
the one that has to hustle in order to buy those bicycles that I wanted. But the networking aspect, it hit me when I was young that being there around the people, then you get inspired and you get to see that, we have so many limiting beliefs when we focus on our own path, on our own life and our own world. Usually it's like it is pretty narrowed. But when you network, you expand it and you can see that everything is achievable and everything can be done. I have a guy for that, for example. That is something that now I can say,
Yeah.
for example. And it is tremendously rewarding, I would say. And besides that, look, you get to speak with people that charge an hourly rate of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And you get them on your show for free. And they help you solve your pain points. And it is crazy.
Yeah, it sure is. One of the things, and we're going to jump into how to monetize this a bit because that's what we want to talk about. But one of the things I always do, and you and I did before you came on show, is I always do a pre-call with people I don't know. Is that a good idea? Is that a bad idea? I know recently I had somebody say to me, "Oh, I'm basically implied he was too good for that," and I said, "Great." Then you can find a show that suits your beliefs because I don't think jumping on an interview with a guest you don't know is a good idea. Do you have any thoughts around that?
Absolutely. Look, I've been in touch with over thousands of podcasts,
Yeah,
and I've been booking hundreds of shows for my
yeah,
clients. And I
yeah.
would say that the best shows are usually the ones they prepare for. So some can do it by, sending a form with questions, or maybe, asking you what 5 questions
Hmm.
do you want to ask. That is one way, but there is nothing like face-to-face meeting or this conversation
Yeah.
that we have at the
Yeah.
moment. I mean, this energy, that
Yeah.
is something that you can feel.
Yeah.
And it is really important. And I don't think that, people can hop on and create the best episode without the proper introduction and without the proper setup.
Yeah. And it's funny because I knew, and I'll use you as a good example here, when we talked the first time, the energy was going to be fine. I could tell. And if you notice, even today when we jumped on to do the record, I didn't jump into a record right away. I asked you how you were. We talked about home, the weather, whatever. I do that on purpose. I like to warm up to my interviews. So I don't like to say, okay, I book a slot, and then I don't like to say, let's start right away. I don't roll that way. I've learned that preamble before we go to record is so valuable to get the energy where I want it. And some people don't get that. And I don't understand why.
It's funny you mention it because, there is, so probably in the podcasting world right now at the moment, there is one show that everybody knows about. And it's The Diary of a CEO. Now,
Yep.
these guys, they are doing a marvelous work because in each episode, and you will see it also in the intro. I follow the editor on Instagram, and he shares that it is a fact that they're trying to reach all the spectrum of emotions in one episode, in one intro, and they're trying to reach the inner inner points and inner corners inside our soul, in order to create a good episode. And I've heard that before each person goes on the show, usually before they record, they put his favorite song or some, song that reminds them of
Love
something.
that.
For example, it could be
Yeah.
your walking down the aisle song. It could be something that, I don't know, maybe my mom used to listen. They do the
I love
research,
that.
and before the guest comes on the show, they try to activate his engagement and his emotions
Mhm.
just by playing this song before the interview. So that's
Yeah.
just one thing, but they optimize that
Yeah.
podcast in so
It,
many levels. So yeah.
it's so cool because, I said to you as you're saying that, I love that. I actually do that for myself. Before I do every recording, one of my favorite get going songs is the classic rock hit More Than a Feeling by Boston. And I always play
Classic.
that right before I go to a recording. I have for 6 years. And it's funny, but music brings up a level up here, and people don't get that. The other one who does that quite well, and I listen to her religiously, is Mel Robbins, one of the most famous podcasters out there. Mel is on my playlist. She's a no miss. I mean, she's not for everybody. Let's understand that. I don't listen to Joe Rogan. I cannot stomach him if my life depended on it. But Mel is on my list. And then I don't know if you've ever heard her show. At the end, they show the outtakes that they didn't show during the show. And that's
Yeah.
interesting too. So it's just really, and it just comes across as more real. Um, it's one of the reasons, and I will today do a little bit, but I don't do hard editing because in the days of I like my show to be real. And by doing hard editing, I'm taking that away. Some people say, I don't like that. Um, I like to just have a conversation. Like you and I are sitting around a table at a bar having a drink and chatting. That's fun, right?
Absolutely. But though it is a conversation, but I think that most of the people, when they think about coming on a podcast, usually, they are afraid of that because
Yeah.
they never done it. It usually they think it is reserved for everyone who already has their accomplishment, already, got featured on Forbes 30 under 30 list or have
Mhm.
50,000 followers or something like that. But the way I think of it is that each person, if you have a lesson, if you have some sort of a transformation to share with the audience, not just a regular conversation, because obviously there are so many talk shows, but
Yeah.
I think that the point is to help the listener to get from point A to point B,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
stories, with lessons, with
Yeah.
everything. So I think that this is actually what I'm aiming for when I'm doing podcasts. So yeah.
No, I agree. And people have that imposter syndrome. Why me? Why am I the expert? Well, that's the hardest part that every small, medium business owner has. And I've worked like you, I've worked with some big Fortune 500s. And, they're in a different echelon. We all know that. But medium business owners have this problem. They're good at what they do, they don't market well. It's why me? And they got to learn to stop being so shy when it comes to themselves. So, um, if you were going to monetize a podcast, how would you? Where would you start?
Wow, there are so many ways.
Okay. Share a few.
I can share a few of the creative ways that I've
Sure.
witnessed.
Yeah.
So I would say, for example, one way would be, at the end, we have a recorded session. And with that in mind, we can always bring up more value to the guest.
Yeah.
So for one example would be, we post this episode. We are going to post this episode on our website. And in terms of SEO effort, it's going to benefit you as well. So probably instead of, buying links, for example, that's what SEO people do.
Yep.
You just
Yep.
buy this featured spot. And from that specific episode, we're going to put it on our website and it's going to help you. But it comes with a cost. So that's just one thing. For example, the other thing could be some podcasters have a community behind it.
Yeah.
So they actually collect each one of their guests to their community. And usually, they are qualified guests. So usually, speaking of one example I had with my client, they sell an ad tech service, SaaS tool. And
Yep.
the usual deal is around $20,000 a month. And when I pitched them on a show that mentioned that they have 100 people inside the community that run a budget of millions of dollars a year only for marketing, it is a no-brainer for them to pay $7,500 to get featured on this specific podcast, because after that, they're going to have some warm introduction. They're going to have
Yeah.
some community with so
Yeah.
many of their direct personas, their ideal clients, waiting for them there. So to pay $7,500 on one episode, it sounds for some people insane, but for them at this point, when they know that they have a gatekeeper saying, look, you're going to be on this show and pay this amount, but I'm going to represent you and match you with all these ideal client of yours, in terms of pipeline effect, it's a no-brainer to pay this amount.
Yeah, it's interesting. And the other effect is if you're the host of the show and you're not like you, a professional 100% podcaster, I have clients that come to me or prospective clients all the time and say, I like the way you break stuff down. You make it in a way people can understand. So can you help me in my business? Because you'll break it down nicely instead of using all that technophobia jargon. And people in technology have a bad habit. They haven't learned that they need to dumb down their conversation for the average person. And I don't mean dumb down, but simplify, because they don't. I mean, a 50-year-old who's an accountant isn't going to understand what you and I are going to understand, who have been in this world all our life, right? And that, I think, is
Yeah.
even more value.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and besides that, I think that most of the podcasters also monetize their show by providing service. Because
Yeah,
after
I do.
this session is done, when we stop recording, we can just be human and ask, look, Rob, what would you like me to help you with? And it goes the other way around. And you can ask me, how would I like to be helped? And obviously, you have some edge over me in some aspects and of doing businesses, and maybe you can sell your service. And this is what
Yeah.
most of the podcasters know that I
You
know
you know
and
that
work
you
with
know
are
that
doing.
conversation's coming, right? You know,
Yeah.
but no, it's true, and that's the networking aspect of it, right? And that's the beauty of all this. Now, the other thing I would say is there's a couple things podcasters do wrong. I've got a client right now who I'm helping build a podcast with. It's consistency. They don't understand that being all over. So there's two things they got to do. If I was starting a podcast tomorrow, the other thing I'd start if I didn't have it already is a mailing list right away. A mailing list or a Substack, and I have a lot of thoughts on that. I would start one at the same time. And then be consistent. If you're going to publish biweekly on a Tuesday, publish every Tuesday, biweekly on a Tuesday. Right now, I've changed my dates. I publish Mondays, not Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays every week, consistent. Now, I might throw in a bonus episode on a Monday or a Thursday. I will this week, but I don't always. But my listeners know there's always going to be an episode there Monday and Friday, or Wednesday and Friday in this case. But the point is consistent, consistent, consistent. And I think that is more important than anything else.
Absolutely. Consistency is key. You know, the statistics shows that most people that open up a podcast, the podcast die within the first 3 episodes. And,
Yep.
you know, to get to the first 1,000 listeners, it will take around a year for a podcast to
Mm-hmm.
achieve that. And it takes huge efforts. And this is why I got so much appreciation for people like you and hosting podcasts. And what you do is, for me,
Thank you.
it is it is insane because obviously I love it. I am a great consumer. You know, 83% of all executives and C-level executives are listening to 5 hours a week of podcasts. And some people are actively working on producing them. And it is crazy to see it from
Yeah.
the side. And, you know, just having this consistency, that is what define a good podcast,
Yep.
because
It's
most of
true.
them don't make it.
Yeah, it's true. I being a podcast producer and coming out of a generation, I'm 59 this year, where I listened to AM radio as a kid growing up. So going from listening to AM radio to podcast is easy because they're both talk, right? And honestly, when I'm working, if I'm not producing audio or video, would you believe I have a podcast on in the background all the time? So for me, and I've shared it on the show before. My number one podcast that I absolutely love is a Wonderly show called Business Wars. I don't know if you've heard it or not heard it, because they do reenactments in it, which is really cool. And I've learned so much about why people have founded companies, how they've built their companies, how they fought a battle with another company about that. Certainly Mel Robbins, she's at top of my list. And the other one that's at the top of my list, which is interesting because I'm a big mental health guy, is the guy on the Ramsey Network called John Deloney. He takes phone-in calls, and he's a mental health expert. So that's big. And then I've got a sports podcast in there. I've even got Pod News Daily is in there, which you've probably listened to. They get a quick synopsis in 5 minutes of what's going on in the podcast world. But they all help, and they all help enjoy. So I'm a consumer, so I know what I like. Interestingly enough, my own podcast is not in my podcast player because I listen to it out of the player, but it's just the way it rolls, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what works for me. Yeah.
yeah.
So,
And it is funny because, yeah, for me, I would say, you know, there is a huge scene going on with true crime, for example.
yep,
Podcasts around true
very much
crime,
so.
that is amazing. So one of my favorite is Darknet Diaries. And it got so many good stories. I really recommend
Darknet
anyone who is
Diaries? I
interested.
listen to Darknet
Darknet
Diaries.
Diaries.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course.
And the way it produced, it is amazing,
Yeah.
astonishing. It's like,
The
those
cyber
stories.
stories. Yeah.
Yeah, those cyber stories of, a person living in his parents' back, like a back yard, um, typing over and taking over the entire world, I would say.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he also brings cyber criminals inside the show and ask them,
Oh yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
it is, I love it.
How did it
So
throw?
this is one
Now
of,
he's a good example because everybody thinks he got published weekly. He publishes bi-weekly, actually. He doesn't publish every week, but he's
I
consistent.
think. Yeah,
I think
I think
he's
he stopped
bi-weekly.
for months. He stopped for months. And like, I think that, in terms of strategic point, he focused more on value rather than
Yeah.
volume.
Yeah. Yeah. I know like and I say consistent, the only time I ever take off is the week in between Christmas and New Year's. I may roll a best of episode or two, I may not. And I think the only other time I took off was when I got sick 2 years ago. I took the 8 days off I was in, plus I took probably 2 more weeks after, but generally I don't take time off. Now, the other thing I'll say is the key for me, and you know this being in this game, is let's not, oh, it's Monday. I promised I put out an episode Tuesday. I have no recordings in the bank. That is the biggest mistake you can make as a podcaster. I always do interviews ahead of time. I say almost because I'm going to this week, almost never turn around interviews the next day. Batching is your key.
Yeah,
Thoughts?
yeah. Yeah, doing marketing, I would always agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. Batching is the key. And, I think most podcasters, their line in terms of if you want to be a guest on their show, you'll have to wait in line for like 3, 4 months in advance. And I'm talking about the good shows, yeah, not just like the
Yeah.
small ones, kids from their basement and stuff like that. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Right now, I'm usually 2 to 3 weeks out. I'm usually that
yeah,
right now.
amazing.
But
Yeah,
I've
but
got, I've gone
you
longer.
are like a clockwork. Yeah, you
Yeah.
have it like a Swiss Army knife, or I would say a Swiss watch. Yeah,
You're funny.
absolutely.
But I think the thing is there's a couple of things you do as you grow your show. The first is you streamline your processes. And my processes have gotten really good. I can do them in my sleep. When I started, I used to write out a checklist to make sure I didn't forget things and tick it off. Now it's in the head. The second thing is you streamline how you do your show. So I used to do on my show for a while, I would do quick 5 and 8 minute tips shows every couple weeks just to spice it up. I don't even do that anymore. I've taken those 5 and 8 minute show and I've moved them to another show on my personal website that's a way that I do every week or every week and a half when I feel like it. And that one really doesn't have time frame. And my main show, I've just streamlined it totally. So the thing you get better is figuring out what you want to do and how you want to do it, and the types of guests you want on. To be honest, like that's the important part.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that, systemizing it, that's the only way to last
Yeah,
and to prosper. And it goes the same with podcast guesting, because once you've been on a show, you have a link, you have something in hand, but you need to use it in a certain way. So it's not just like having it and just like posting the link to that specific show or episode and that's it, you're done. Because you have to systemize the whole thing. So Google stated a rule named the 7-Eleven 4. So they
yes,
stated that in order to become a client and to actually purchase from a person or from a brand, one has to go through 7 hours of engagement with this brand.
yeah,
And it can come across 11 touch points. So, for example, watching a video, reading a blog,
Yeah.
interacting with your Instagram post, and do it on 4 different platforms. So it could be, LinkedIn, website, your website, YouTube, Spotify, but it has to be this specific. You have to qualify for this tool in order to convert people.
Mhm.
And the one thing that I really recommend for people that are getting featured as guests on podcast is to systemize the way they get from one podcast lots of content and lots of all these touch points and all of these engagement and all of these things that they have to do. So it goes the same way on the guest side as well, I
Yeah,
would say.
it does too. No question. For me, one of the things that's been a game changer, I talked earlier with you about creating an email list because you got to have a way to stay in touch. You know what's changed my world? About 8 months ago, I took my email list and I moved it to Substack. And what that has done for the show, and what I'm going to tell anybody is if you're sharing video and audio, don't share a link. Upload your video and audio right to Substack. That will increase your show views dramatically. And I mean, from guests, from people listening, from people watching, people commenting. What do you think of that as a platform, or do you have an opinion?
So I think that Substack are doing something that is good. And me being
Yeah,
a marketing manager and doing marketing for all those years, you know, when you have this like we can call it a wealth of a water,
yeah,
and you
yeah,
attract people to this water, this is the best thing that you can do as a marketer because people will reach out to you. And Substack has been developing their software and their
mhm,
tools in some sort of way that you can say, look, it is almost a community because one Substack newsletter can point to your Substack newsletter.
yeah,
And
correct.
the way you can collaborate, they created some sort of a social
Yeah,
platform rather than just a newsletter platform.
yeah,
And in that way, I think that Substack are doing something that is very good. But for me, for example, so I took it differently because look,
okay,
writing an email and just boosting it would not be the thing that I want to feel. I just want to feel the engagement. I just want to feel the people that
yeah,
I'm interacting with. So I've created a school community, for example.
yeah. You did. I was going to go there,
Now,
which is pretty awesome.
yeah, and I think that both Substack and School, they are now serving us as the marketplace,
Yes,
the focal
yes,
point for people that are trying to find out some solutions or some sort of feeling related to people. So I would say that both Substack and School are serving us better, rather
yeah,
than just like mailing people.
yeah. And it's funny because um, when you think of it, school communities or Substacks are really forums, and the industry's gone circle because forums were big on bulletin boards before the internet was founded. So we've kind of gone full circle again, which is interesting. And we will post a link to Gal's cool community in the show notes so you'll be able to join and go say hello and bug them and tell them you saw them here because that's important too. Um, the last thing I kind of want to touch on is where to put your podcast out to. So you got to do YouTube in this day and age. I'm sorry. If you're not doing video, you're leaving viewers and listeners on the table. In my
Yeah.
opinion, where I think are the must beyond YouTube, Apple, Amazon, um, uh, Spotify, and the fourth one for me is a must because it's the number one non-Apple player's Pocket Cast. Everything else, I would do them if you can. And everybody's going to say they don't understand this stuff. Oh, that's work. No, your podcast host will handle pushing it out once you set it up. So it's not work. The hardest one to get on is Apple. That can take you a week or 2 weeks. The other ones are days. What do you think of that? Or am I missing one or where's your thought process?
So Usually, when I think about, this distribution, I
Yeah,
always think how to hack the system because there are some websites that if you'll put and place your podcast there, some other website are crawling there and getting their
yeah,
information
that
from
too.
that specific website. So a good example in the podcasting industry would be listennotes.com. Now, listennotes.com, it serves as sort of the Google for podcasts. It is a free website where you can search for shows, topics, if certain guests, for example. But you can actually claim your show there because I bet that your show is already there, but maybe you didn't claim it. And once you claim your show in listennotes.com, and it costs nothing, it is practically
Mhm.
free. It costs nothing. Once you claim it, you can feed listen notes with your
Yeah,
data. And once you feed listen notes with your
yeah,
data, they can measure how good your show, in inside your industry. So they can rate you, for example, top 10% in business industry,
yeah, yeah,
show in the US, for example. So just placing your podcast, obviously, YouTube, it's a non-negotiation here. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast. I would also mention, because you mentioned it, Substack. It is a good place,
yeah,
and some shows can even open up a school community behind the show
yeah,
just to feel
like
the
you.
engagement, and
Yeah,
maybe, I don't know, maybe even monetize the show that way. But I would say listennotes.com is a must.
yeah. Okay, and that's a great tip, and we'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. Hey, Gal, this has been amazing. If somebody wants your help with their podcast or anything else, besides your school community, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
So I'm mainly operating on LinkedIn because it
Yeah,
is like the B2B
I
platform.
agree. Me too.
And it is the best place to reach out to me. Seriously, I don't like emails. I don't like WhatsApp messages, but LinkedIn, I always check. My inbox is always zero. Um, it's like a spa reception in Sweden. I'm always ready there. But besides that, joining my school community will also benefit everyone, because if you're a podcaster and you're looking for guests, you got them
Yeah,
there. If you're a guest and you're looking for a podcast, you got them there.
yeah.
Yeah, I only started it in last December, and we are already in heading to 400 members, and it is crazy for me. And we already
Congr
generated 30 episodes inside the community, and
yeah,
it's totally free. So yeah.
yeah. Congratulations on that. Having run and still running some communities on my own, being a community manager is a lot of work. I like podcasting, but we all know in this digital world, to get fulfilling rewards, you got to put to work in. So thank you very much, my friend. We're going to have you back soon, and you have yourself a wonderful day. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Take care, Rob. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, you too. Thank you. Thanks again to our sponsor, All in One WP Migration by ServeMask. Export your entire WordPress site in one click, import it anywhere. No server access needed, no command line, works with every hosting provider. Free on WordPress.org or extension at servemask.com. A very special thank you to Go for joining me on this edition of the SDM. The SDM Show is dedicated to my late father, Bruce Cairns. Dad, I miss you very much every day. My mother, Ann Cairns, who's still doing really well and is an inspiration. And of course, Liz Maroney. And Liz, I know I've said it, but thank you so much for all the inspiration you give me every day.